On this episode of Left Off the Map, we're looking at the growth of the gin industry in Tasmania, or the growth of the spirit industry in Tasmania. It was about 25 years ago, Tasmania didn't even make its own whiskey. It wasn't allowed to. There were no distilling stills here in Tasmania. It took a guy named Bill Lark to actually go to the government and let them allow people like Bill to start making spirits. Now, whiskey takes a long time to age, but gin is turned around pretty quickly. So while these distillers are aging their whiskey in barrels, they started making gin. And there's a gin producer in Devonport called Dasher and Fisher, and they make some of the best gin I've ever tasted. So I'm going to catch up with one of my great friends, Jessie Spivey, who opened a restaurant in South Australia called My Grandma Ben. She's also a MasterChef alumni just like me. We're going to go check out that gin distillery a little bit later. Before that, I'm going to show you a recipe that makes use of all the floral notes that are in gin. Peaches and gin are a great combination, so we're going to make a peach and gin sorbet. We need a little food processor, so I've got one here. We need our peaches, of course. I'm going to use about 500 grams of peaches. So about half this tin. Spoon them. And then I need about half a cup of the actual syrup. Peach syrup, I reckon, just as a drink is fantastic, or just to have with gin on its own. So gin and the peach syrup that's in here and a little bit of ice is really nice. So it makes sense that gin and peaches in a sorbet is going to work really well. A couple more spoons of our actual peaches and then some of the liquid. About half a cup, then about 50 mils of gin, depending on how strong you want it to be, of course. The juice of a lemon, just because there's a lot of sugar in there in that syrup, so just to help balance that out. So we'll go half a lemon, and then a little bit of vanilla. About a teaspoon of vanilla. Pinch of salt. Pop that on. Lid on. We'll blitz that together. Now, you could just drink that as is, as like a gin peach slushy, but we are trying to make this into a sorbet. So I just want to taste it at this point. Oh, yum. A little bit more gin. Oh, that's really good. Oh, just drink that. Don't worry about setting it. A little bit more. All right. Play yourself a little tune. Little trays to set it in. All I'm trying to do here is set it solid, and then I'm going to chop it up and put it back in the food processor and blitz it again. So half into one, half into the other. And then we're going to set those, chop them up, and pop them back in there and blitz it again. So they're frozen and they're ready to go. I am going to try, before I get my blowtorch out, I'm going to try and see if I can get them out. Let's just use a blowtorch. Any excuse to use a blowtorch for me. So just if you've got a gas hob or if you've got a blowtorch or even a small blowtorch, just hit it with a bit of this and it'll melt and obviously fall out. All right, so Just want to break this up into chunks. That's actually pretty good as it is. You can almost get away, I mean, that's more of a granita than a sorbet at the moment. But you could get away with that as a nice granita rather than a sorbet if you didn't want to go through the process of blitzing it twice. Oh, yum. That's so nice. Pop it back into your food processor. This is just going to help the process really of going from a granita into a sorbet. Blitz that again. So now we've got something that more resembles a sorbet. You can put it back into your serving container and just treat it like you would a normal sorbet. So pop it back into the freezer, grab it out when you want it. But you have to remember this is an ice sorbet, not a dairy sorbet. But you can pop that back into the freezer and you've got sorbet for really any time of the year, any event, any process. Or you can serve it straight away. Give that a try again because it's just that good. Oh. All right, I'll stop eating that. Now we'll go check out the gin making process with Jesse Spivey at Dasher and Fisher. This is how most days start in a restaurant. We're in very early and we don't leave until very late, but we have a lot of fun while we're in here. I'm heading out today with a very special guest, someone who went through the same thing I went through on MasterChef, Jessie Spivey. She's a good friend. She's got a fantastic restaurant in Adelaide. Hey.
Hey.
Welcome to Tassie again.
Thank you.
How long are you down for?
Just the week this time. Yes.
So we're going to go out and have a look at the gin maker just down there a little bit, and then back to the restaurant. We'll do a bit of a cook, and then we'll sit down and have dinner.
Awesome.
Sound good?
I love it. Sounds amazing.
All right, let me just finish up here, and then we'll get on the road.
Cool.
So this is Southern Wild Distillery.
Wow.
Literally is 50 metres away from
It really is.
Hey
I
mate.
smell it.
How are you?
Welcome to the distillery.
Hi, Jessie. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Jessie. Nice speaking to you.
Jessie, as soon as she walked in, said, I can smell it. That's because this is actually a working distillery, not just a bar, isn't it?
Absolutely. I just finished making meadow gin just today, so that smell that you can smell, that's
Smells
all those
so
fresh
good.
botanicals.
Do you want, can we go and have a look?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on in.
So, how many awards have you won now?
Oh, I've lost track, but I think
You've lost track, that's always good.
I think in the last couple of years, just over 50.
Yeah.
Might be about 56
Yeah.
awards.
And is that, so there's three main ones you produce, isn't it?
Correct.
And that is, are they mainly shared around those three main ones, or is there a standout that keeps winning?
No, they really are shared out amongst those three. But in the last few weeks, one of our seasonals, or both of our seasonals, have really stood out.
And that's the slow?
The slow and the strawberry.
The strawberry is the one that every time I smell it, I don't know how you can get so much strawberry flavour into a liquid.
And I agree. It really comes down to the quality of the produce that's actually grown at Turner's Beach.
Yeah.
I've tried making that exact same recipe with strawberries from other places, and nothing compares to the quality of the strawberries that are produced in Turner Feed.
So what are the 3 gins that make up the catalogue, sort of year in, year out? What are the main differences between the 3?
The idea behind the 3 was to tell the story of the Tasmanian landscape in gin. Now, Tassie's pretty complex, and it's a lovely island. It's a bit hard to tell that in just one gin. So we have ocean, meadow, and mountain, and they all tell the different landscape stories. Now, ocean, it's the subtle gin that sort of has that salty freshness coming through, and that's the wakame seaweed that's harvested off the east coast. And with the meadow, we wanted to showcase our beautiful Tassie landscape, and it picks up on the fresh lavender that's picked out at Bristow Estate. And the mountain gin, that's the biggest, boldest in the lineup, and it uses the Tasmanian mountain pepperberry to really highlight that.
Which gin would you recommend?
I'd suggest you do a tasting and find out for yourself.
I'm
I was
pretty
hoping you
happy
would
with that
say.
decision. Yeah, why not? Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So there's a lot more to making gin than probably meets the eye. All the aromatics that go into it, the process from start to finish. It is a quick process, but you end up with a really good product. So now I'm going very, very similar to the dish we did at the beginning where I used peaches to make a granada. I'm going to use tinned apricots to make an apricot and gin pie. There are a few little techniques I'm going to show you to make sure that the problem with these kind of pies is that the filling gets quite wet and the pastry ends up going soggy. So I'm going to show you a couple little tricks to get around that. One of them is arrowroot, which is a thickening agent, and hazelnut meal, which again is a thickening agent. The first thing I want to do is I want to make the mixture or the filling of my pie. So I'll leave those for last. I'll get my apricot sorted first. So it's an 850 gram tin, so you might as well say a kilo. And I'm going to I'm only doing a small pie. So just because I don't need to feed like 400 people, I'm just doing enough for probably 2 people or 1 if you are really hungry. So I'm going to take out some apricots. I'm going to use some of the syrup because the syrup has got a lot of apricot flavour in there, a lot of sugar. You don't want to waste that. So I'm going to use probably half of this. So probably 500 grams of our apricots, which is, you've got to think about what's going to fit in there. And then I'm going to reserve the juices. Don't waste the juice. Pour that into a container of some kind, chill it. That is such a good condiment to go with gin on its own, any other liqueur, just with some ice in it, with a Long Island iced tea or a flavoured tea. It's a really refreshing drink. So never, ever, ever get rid of that syrup. It's gold, absolute gold. So in with that, my gin, I've got 2 shots of gin, so 60 mils of gin. I've got my arrowroot. My oven is ready. My arrowroot, about 1.5 tablespoons of arrowroot, which is a thickening agent. Problem is that because these have been soaked, as you cook them, they're going to release a lot of moisture. And that moisture is going to end up creating a wet filling, and that's going to soften our pastry. Same with our hazelnut meal. I'm going to add a little bit of hazelnut meal. That's going to thicken everything up. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. Now this is just caster sugar, about 1 tablespoon of caster sugar. A pinch of salt. Whenever you add sugar, add a little pinch of salt. A little bit of vanilla. Then, what am I looking for? Salt, sugar, that's it. I'm going to mix that with a spoon. Now as I mix all this together, it's going to start to thicken a little bit, which is what we want. And as this cooks, because of the arrowroot, as it cooks, as the temperature gets higher, the arrowroot will activate and it will start to thicken. So mix all that together. I'm keeping my peaches whole. I love them whole. So that's our mixture. Now, at the moment, it looks quite wet and it looks quite sloppy, but as the temperature rises, everything's going to thicken, so don't freak out too much. So that's pretty simple at this stage. That's our filling done. So, spoon your filling into your pie dish. Like so. Make sure you fill it all up. I've actually pretty much nailed this. I'm happy with the amount of fruit I've got in there. I'm going to pour all of my sauce over the top, which is going to end up thickening. Okay, so that's our pie filling. Now we want our lattice, or our top. So, some pastry. There are many, many, many different ways to creating lattices. So, I'm going to cut just little strips like this to create our plaits or our lattice. I'm going to do half in our lattice. Now, you can put a base on top and then you can build a lattice on top of that, or you could just go the complete lattice. So we might go the complete lattice. So what you want to do is lay a strip like that, and then a strip like that, strip like that, and then it's a matter of weaving them in and out. So I want to go, that one will go under there, like that, and over the top. This one will go, that one will go under there, and lift that up, under there. So we've got one under, one over, one under, one over, which is what we want. And then a couple more strips. And then I'm going to go this way. And really you're just trying to, I mean, this is all going to move around once you start to cook things. But you're just trying to create gaps here and there that are going to create nice little patterns at the end. Then you just want to go around and trim. So run your knife around those edge bits. Remembering that these kind of pies are rusty. Unless you're going to spend, you know, an hour making lattices and folding them and plaiting them and all those sorts of things, lattices just give you different textures of pastry. So a very simple lattice. All right, so now you need to create an egg wash. Very important component. It's going to give it that nice golden colour, but it's also going to allow me to stick my brown sugar and my caster sugar. So our Tasmanian devil eggs, which everyone down here in Tasmania buys because it's a great way to support the Tasmanian devil and all the issues we're having at the moment. So an amount of money for every egg carton bought goes towards supporting those devils. So brush the top with your egg wash. I've got brown sugar and caster sugar here. I'm going to sprinkle brown sugar and caster sugar all over the top of our lattice pie. You want a good covering, and we don't have a huge amount of sugar in the filling itself. All right, that's pretty good. A little pinch of salt on top of all that. Clean around the outside. Into our oven, 180 degrees. Pop that in. It's going to take about 35 to 45 minutes before that is done. Now, you might need to add a little bit more sugar as it goes along, depending on how the process is going in the goldening of that top. Remember, everything in there is cooked apart from the pastry, so really you're just looking for a nice golden pastry to go on top. So we'll come back and check on that in about half an hour and see how we're going.